Howdy, folks, and welcome back. Hope you're all blessed and doing okay out there. Well, for today's video, we're taking a look at another old video from my other YouTube channel I used to have, and this one is called Fort Worth Stockyards. This video was filmed about 2017 or 18, I forget, and what I did was I filmed the Stockyards and a walking tour from a friend of mine. Ultimately, this video is a tribute to my friend Betty Dillard, who was a true sweetheart and a good friend of mine. She went home to heaven in 2020, and we all miss her in the Stockyards, those of us who remember her. She was really awesome. Anyway, it starts with an introduction of me reading a paper about the Stockyards. You hear some facts about the Stockyards, a 12-minute video cuts Bear of the West, and then the walking tour itself. I don't show you everything in the Stockyards, the tour included, but you'll see like certain amazing things and stuff like that. And after this, I gotta talk about some of the changes that happened since this was made. Anyway, sit back, relax, and enjoy. Sail up, y'all. Yeehaw, here we go.
Well, today you can see I'm dressed a little differently. This is my other outfit. Besides a roadman, I'm also a cowboy. Today's program is all about the Fort Worth Stockyards. And let me just break it down a bit. I'm going to start by reading a 2-page piece of paper on the Stockyards history. It's a brief history. Then we're going to go to the Stockyards, and I'm going to give you guys a tour of it. Well, actually, a good friend of mine will be your tour guide that day. We'll see some amazing things there. Fort Worth has quite a unique history to it, just like other parts of the world. Now this video I'm doing it for a few reasons. One, it's just something for fun that I wanted to do for a while now. Two, it's for people who can't make it out to the Stockyards but want to learn some Texas history, so I recommend you watch it. And three, it's to encourage people to come and check it out. There's a lot of amazing things to see and do in Fort Worth. Besides 7 Square, the Stockyards is a really unique place. Now, I'm going to read to you this paper right quick, and then I've got some materials to talk about, and then we'll head to the Stockyards for our tour. The history of the Fort Worth Stockyards. For the drovers heading the cattle up the Chisholm Trail to the railroads, Fort Worth was the last major stop for grass and supplies. Beyond Fort Worth, they would have to deal with crossing the Red River into Indian Territory. Between 1866 and 1890, more than 4 million head of cattle were trailed through Fort Worth, which was soon known as Cowtown. Cowtown soon had its own disreputable entertainment district several blocks south of the courthouse area, known all the way west as Hell's Half Acre. When the railroad finally arrived in 1876, Fort Worth became a major shipping point for livestock. This promoted plans in 1887 for the construction of the Union Stockyards about 2.5 miles north of the Tarrant County Courthouse. It went into full operation about 1889. Because the Union Stockyards Company lacked the funds to buy enough cattle to attract local ranchers, President Mike C. Hurley invited a wealthy Boston capitalist, Greenleaf Simpson, to Fort Worth in hope he would invest in the Union Stockyards. When Simpson arrived on the heels of heavy rains and a railroad strike, more cattle than usual had accumulated in the pens. Seeing this, he decided that Fort Worth represented a good market and made plans to invest. Simpson invited other investors to join him, one of whom was a Boston neighbor, Louisville v. Niles, whose primary business was meatpacking. On April 27, 1893, Simpson bought the Union Stockyards for $133,333.33. Now that was a big amount back then, folks, compared to now. We all want to be millionaires, but back then, if you had $100,000, you were set for life. And changed the name of Fort Worth Stockyards Company to the Fort Worth Stockyards Company. It soon became apparent that instead of shipping to other markets to process the cattle, it would be much more desirable to keep more of the business in Fort Worth by having local packing plants. A search began to lure major packers to the city. By about 1900, after much work by local businessmen, both Armour Co. and Swift Co. were persuaded to build plants adjacent to the stockyards. Persuaded. Construction began in 1902, but not until after the exact site of each plant was decided. By a flip of the coin, Armour won the toss and settled the northern site, and Swift began to build on the southern side of the track, which was the site of the original livestock exchange and hotel. Swift & Co. received an unexpected fundamental bonus when a large gravel pit was found on the southern site. Gravel pit, which was found on the southern site that was ultimately used in the construction of both plants. The new livestock exchange building in its present location, as well as the pens and the barns, were also started in 1902. The new building was designed to house the many livestock commission companies, telegraph offices, railroad offices, and other support businesses. While construction was underway, the Fort Worth Stockyards Company, which now included the two meat packers, incorporated much of the area north of the river adjacent to the stockyards as North Fort Worth. In 1909, the city of Fort Worth annexed the new city with the exception of the stockyards and packing house property. Business boomed with the opening of the packing houses. Armour and Swift bought 265,279 cattle, 128,934 hogs, and 40,160 sheep, which brought over $6 million into the local company, a livestock market that drew local farmers and ranchers, and finally arrived in Fort Worth. The Livestock Exchange Building became known as the Wall Street of the West. Because of the success of the stockyards, the necessity for an indoor show facility became obvious. In 1907, construction began on a grand coliseum that was completed in 1988. Just 88 working days. In time for the grand opening of the Feeders and Breeders Show. The Coliseum, which today is known as the Cowtown Coliseum, was the home of the first indoor rodeo. It was used for many cultural, social, agricultural, and religious events as well. Stockyards continued to prosper in spite of droughts and floods. In 1911, after two disastrous fires that killed a large number of the penned livestock, the yards were rebuilt with an eye toward using as much non-flammable material as possible. In 1911, Newtown, Niles City was chartered and grew up around the stockyards and packing house properties. Niles City was known as the richest little city in the world, with a property value of $30 million. In 1923, Fort Worth annexed this area. At the begin, at the height of World War I in 1917, the Fort Worth Stockyards was the largest horse and mule market in the world. Military officers from Allied countries came to purchase the animals to support their war efforts. Total sales of all livestock continued to grow during the war years. During World War II, Fort Worth Stockyards processed 5,277,496 head of livestock, making 1944 the peak year for the entire operation. In later years, sales at the stockyards began to decline, sadly, and by 1969 had dwindled down to a mere 1,045,158 head. By 1986, sales reached an all-time low of 57,181 animals. Many reasons for the decline of the stockyards can be stated by one of the largest facilities was the rise of the trucking industry. Factors was the rise of the trucking industry on the newly paved road after World War II. Because of their low operating costs and greater flexibility, much of the advantage that railroads had in bulk shipping was lost. The market moved to the shipper, and with the creation of the local livestock auctions and feedlots, it was completely a new way of marketing livestock. I think that was a typo on the paper. Not only was Fort Worth affected, all the major packers in the United States struggled with new ways to move livestock, to market livestock. Both Armour and Swift had huge, outdated plans and straddled with rising costs. I think it's supposed to be struggled. That's another typo. Wages and administrative expenses. Armour was the first to close the Fort Worth plant in 1962, with Swift hanging on until 1971. Partial demolition followed over the years after several fires. The unique Armour office building was lost, but the classic Swift headquarters building was put to use as the home of a popular restaurant during the 1970s. Spaghetti Warehouse, folks, one of my favorite places to eat. While local auctions continued to be held in the stockyards, the volume diminished until it was unprofitable to continue. This vibrant part of Fort Worth history fell on hard times as the stockyards area continued its decline. In 1976, the North Fort Worth Historical Society, founded by Charlie and Sue McCafferty, was chartered to ensure Fort Worth's livestock heritage would continue and be preserved. Since then, the Society has worked to promote the history of one of the greatest livestock and meat packing industries in the country. The Fort Worth Stockyards National Historical District was also established in 1976, and many of the area's landmarks have been restored, including the Livestock Exchange Building and the Coliseum recently. The historic Swift & Co. headquarters building underwent an almost total restoration. In 1989, the Fort Worth Historical Society opened the Stockyards Museum and the Historic Exchange Building. It now hosts thousands of visitors from all over the world each year. Its facilities and collection are expanded to handle the ever-increasing number of visitors. Weekly livestock auctions ceased many years ago, but the Stockyards continues to host special breed events and sales, including the Longhorn auctions. Many thousands of head of cattle are still sold in the stockyards every week via video satellite sales originating in the exchange building. The livestock legacy is up. Today, Fort Worth Stockyards Historic District is one of the most popular tourist destinations. Many events of all kinds are held every year. New businesses and lodgings have been established, adding to the history and fun that is the Fort Worth Stockyards. Well, that's the history right there, folks. It took me a bit, but the print's kind of small. I have a bit of a vision problem. It's called cut dystrophy. Google it for more information on it. But that pretty much covers the first half of what you're going to see in this video. And right quick, I'll tell you about some of the things you can see at the Stockyards. The Cowtown Coliseum has been there for a long time, and like I said, was built in only 88 days. You can't even get a building permit in that time nowadays. But it's amazing it took that long to build it. Today it currently hosts the Pineville Wild West show on Saturdays and the rodeo, which is on Friday night and Saturday nights. Billy Bob's Texas, which was not mentioned, has also been in the Stockyards since the 1970s. Originally, it was built to house performances by numerous artists. Several people have performed there, including Ringo Starr, Willie Nelson, The News, and so much more. Stockyards, it's not quite big as booming as it once was, but it still serves a purpose and still serves history. It is the second most visited place in Texas after the Alamo. And now right quick, I'll tell you about the stuff here on the table. Some of the things you can get when you get there, which are interesting. Zoom in. First of all, this right here talks about the old Chisholm Trail. It's a brief history on it, and you can get them for free. Chisholm Trail, as was mentioned, was a trail that took you up north to Abilene, Kansas. Now here's one thing you probably don't know, but Abilene was home to the country's first cowtown. People think it's Fort Worth. No, Abilene, Kansas. Here's another thing you can get. This is a book. This was written by Lola Lather Hardesty. She's a photographer. I have met her. She is very nice, and she autographed this book for me, so this is something special I will always treasure. The pictures are just amazing. There's even pictures of art by a local artist named Style Reed. Now, if you go to the Coliseum, I recommend you get this. This talks about the history of it. This was from the 100th anniversary, as you can see on the front. Now, when you go to the rodeo or the Wild West show, you're going to want to get yourself one of these programs here. This thing has some amazing facts about the program, what you're going to see. There's even a section where they'll autograph it for you, the people of the Wild West show. It's amazing. And also, you get a piece of paper. It's not in here, but if you pay $3, you could win a pair of Justin boots and a Stetson hat with your name engraved on it. If they call your number, that is. I haven't won, but I keep playing. It's fun. It's really quite something. Or if you want to walk around and explore the Stockyards yourself, pick yourself up one of these guidebooks. This has amazing facts about the landmarks and talks about different brands and horse techniques. Or you can get yourself one of 2 DVDs. This right here was recently produced. It talks about the different changes that have been in the Stockyards, including things about Billy Bobs and stuff like that. It's really a unique documentary. This talks about the Wall Street of the West, the livestock exchange bank, and how the Stockyards got started. Now, this book right here was written by a good publishing company. This is a postcard history of the Stockyards. I have several books from the same company. They do amazing, amazing work. I have several books, like I said, so check them out. It's by Accordia Publishing. And I really love the publication, so check them out. Now this right here was given to me by people I know who work at the Stockyards. It's a special flag that says Fort Worth on it, and I really like it a lot. And lastly, if you're wondering what the deal is with the Thurber brick, well, it came from a place called Thurber, Texas. 10 million bricks make up the Stockyards. I won't say anything further about that. I'll save it for the tour. And if you're wondering about the Wells Fargo thing here, it's actually a cookie jar. This was given to me by my good friend Betty, who will be your tour guide. I use it though to keep money in because, well, as we all know, Wells Fargo was a bank company. Well, that wraps it up for this portion of the video. Now put on your cowboy hat, strap on those spurs on them boots, and take a step back in time to history. Let's mosey on down to Cowtown. Yeehaw! Alright, y'all, here we are at the Stockyards. We are actually outside the visitor center. Well, temporary visitor center. It was actually that building over there originally. And a company called the Cowboy Channel, a subsidiary of RFD TV, bought the building and they currently own it. Now, before we start our tour, I got something to show y'all. This right here is called the Running FW brand. Fort Worth is the only city in the world to have its own herd of cattle and its own twice-a-day cattle drive and its own brand. It basically looks like a giant set of longhorns, and as you can see, the F points towards the past, the W points towards the future. This was designed by the city of Fort Worth many years ago, and it's pretty much all over the place. You can find it on all the sides and all the longhorns and horses out here. Well, before the video starts, we're going to start with a 12-minute video called Spirit of the West. Kind of gives you an idealistic look and background of the Stockyards. So saddle up, put on your hat and spurs, and take a step back in time as we take a tour of the Stockyards. Cut.
Fort Worth Stockyards National Historic District. During the next few minutes, I want to tell you a story. It's a story about a time and a place most folk think are only memories. The time is the last half of the 19th century. And the place? Well, let's just call it the Old West. Now I'm going to be honest with you. Some people say the Old West never really existed. They say it was nothing more than an elaborate web of folklore and legends that got embellished by journalists and movie makers. Well, I'm here to tell you, the folks who think that way are dead wrong. The Old West ain't a myth at all. And that's the story I want to tell you. The story begins in 1865. That's the year the Civil War ended and the Texas cattle industry was born. Now, most folks know that the years just after the war between the states were tough for folks in the South. It was a time for rebuilding in every sense of the word, physically, emotionally, and economically. As Texans worked to get their state back on its feet, it didn't take long to realize they were facing a golden opportunity. Here's what happened. In the north, the dusty, smoky cities were teeming with new factories and mills. Hundreds of thousands of immigrant workers flocked to the new jobs, sweating through 60-hour work weeks for as little as 50 cents a day. Nevertheless, a steady job meant the average family could buy things that were luxuries not long before. Ready-made clothes, gas lights, newspapers, and beef. The North had an endless appetite for beef. Back in Texas, vast prairies were populated by millions of rangy, half-wild longhorn cattle. For the most part, the longhorns had been ignored and left unattended during the war, but they didn't seem to mind. They felt right at home on the desolate grasslands, and their population skyrocketed. In 1868, a fella could buy longhorns for about $4 a head, then drive them north and sell them for 10 times that amount. So in a matter of months, an industry was born. Herds of calves fed on the plains for a year or two at no cost were like a fortune on the hoof. And over the next 15 years, Texans drove more than 5 million beeves to northern markets like Abilene, Wichita, and Dodge City. And Fort Worth prospered too. Because it was the last vestige of civilization for the northbound herds, Fort Worth became a lively hub for business, industry, and entertainment of every stripe. On the way north, the drovers used Fort Worth as a staging area before setting out on their 1,000-mile journey. They loaded up on blankets, equipment, ammunition, and food for their lonely 3-month trek. Prior to the big drives, the cowboys were always glad to show up a few days early to enjoy the social amenities Fort Worth became famous for. Then, once the herd was delivered, the process was reversed, and the cowboys and cattlemen looked forward to the first-class treatment they knew they'd find in Fort Worth on the way back home. With their pockets full of payday, the men were made to feel right at home, at least for as long as their money held out. Dozens of dance halls, saloons, gambling parlors, bars, burlesque theaters, and boarding houses operated day and night in the area known as Hell's Half Acre. During their glory days, the long overland trail drives brought thousands of pouches of gold to ragged Texans, feeding hungry families, and making a few men into overnight millionaires. 30 years of trail drives also gave birth to a new breed of hero, the American cowboy. In earlier years, cattle drovers in the eastern states had simply walked their cattle to market. But now, with vast herds spread over hundreds of miles of open range, the mounted cowboy became indispensable. The reality of a cowboy's life was a far cry from the images that come out of Hollywood. The Texas cowboy was a dusty, overworked, tough-as-leather hombre. He sweltered under a prairie sun and rode endless miles in rain and sleet to mend fences or hunt for lost calves. On the job, he led a bitterly tough life. He worked up to 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, and traveled as much as 1,800 miles with no comforts other than a campfire and a bedroll. Cowboys were men of a particular time and place. They lived by an unusual code that was one part Victorian social values and one part hard-fisted frontier survival. The cowboy's job was hazardous and punishing. Yet despite the hardships, most of them never complained. Likewise, they never lost respect for ladyfolk or their sense of justice and fair play. That's an unusual combination, and it's probably the reason the cowboy has always been regarded as a genuine, all-American hero, and probably always will be. "1882 was a turning point for the North Texas cattle industry. That's when the Fort Worth and Denver Railroad completed its trunk line to Wichita Falls. Although it signaled the beginning of the end for vast open grazing lands, the cattle kingdom itself continued to prosper. By the turn of the century, Fort Worth's leaders had developed plans that would assure the city's continued role as a world leader in livestock. Those plans materialized in 1903 when two giant meatpacking companies, Swift and Armour, opened their huge modern processing plants just 2 blocks from here. During their first 10 months of operation, Swift and Armour bought and processed 40,000 sheep, 129,000 hogs, and 265,000 cattle. On your tour today, you're going to visit the buildings and pens and chutes that literally defined the livestock industry for almost a century. In its heyday, the stockyard's sheer size and efficiency made it the envy of the world. If you're into statistics, consider this. Between 1896 and 1986, the stockyards processed more than 180 million head of livestock. That's right, 180 million. The stockyards reached its pinnacle in 1944, when its 6,000 employees processed well over 5 million head of livestock. You know, I can still remember a lot of those hard-working men and women and how proud they were of Fort Worth and the Stockyards. Somehow they knew their city was destined to become something out of the ordinary. So while you're on your tour, keep in mind that the Stockyards district is a lot more than a collection of interesting Old West buildings. It's also a monument to a rare breed of people, men and women of courage and pride and vision. As you look around the buildings and sprawling old livestock pens, you'll know they were built, board upon board, by people who were bold enough to dream the dream and stubborn enough to make it come true. So that's about it. That's the story I wanted to tell you. I hope it gives you a little better understanding of what you're going to see today. As you already know, right this minute, you're sitting smack dab in the middle of one of the best examples of Old West culture anywhere in Texas, or in the world for that matter. Not only do we have an incredibly colorful history here, we also have a place where people still like to gather for a meal, a beer, or one of our special annual events that draw thousands of visitors from across the country and around the world. And what do they find when they get here? They discover things like good food and old-fashioned hospitality, friendly merchants with all the latest clothes, leather goods, jewelry, crafts, and what my mama used to call doodads. As you'd expect, the Stockyards is mighty proud of its role as a living link to the heritage of the Old West. And today, you'll see that pride everywhere you look. You'll see landmarks like the Stockyards Hotel, for years the home away from home for millionaire cattle barons and common cowboys. And then there's the famous Cowtown Coliseum, site of the world's first indoor rodeo in 1918. The Coliseum was also where Italian opera star Enrico Caruso turned in an electrifying performance in 1920. You'll also see the sprawling horse and mule barns. The original barns burned to the ground in 1911 on the very day President Teddy Roosevelt was here to visit the livestock show. The barns were rebuilt of brick and concrete and went on to provide 200,000 horses and mules to Europe during World War I. You'll see the gracious old livestock exchange building. With its Spanish-style architecture, the building served as the nerve center of the cattle kingdom from the time it was opened in 1903. And keep your eyes open for the beautifully restored Tarantula steam train as it shuttles passengers to and from the stockyards. Oh yeah, and don't miss Stockyards Station. This complex once served as the Stockyards hog and sheep pens. Today, it's a unique market center with outstanding shops, galleries, and restaurants. I guess even after 120 years, the old place still hasn't lost its charm. It's kind of like a snapshot from America's past, full of the sights and sounds of a time when the cowboy was king. Welcome again to the Stockyards, home of the spirit of the West. We're glad you're here.
And we are glad you're here. I'd like to apologize for the background sounds. I got a tickle in my throat. And folks, cowboys are still considered kings here in Texas. Also, the quality of the program may have been kind of off a bit because this was recorded from a VHS tape. And this program was narrated by none other than the great Barry Corbin. Now, I got something to show y'all, and then we'll take our tour. Yeehaw! Alright. That was quite a video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. You can see it actually right here in the Stockyards at the Visitor Center, and you see it before every tour starts. Now, before we get started on the tour, though, I have something to show you. This right here is an old marker from the Chisholm Trail. The Chisholm Trail was a famous trail, and you'll learn more about it later with a brief summary. It's what cowboys used to drive their cattle up to market to Abilene, Kansas. There have been many songs written about it, so check it out. Also, there's this plaque down here, which actually shows up on screen. You can pause the video and read it if you'd like. It zoom out.
Oops.
It's alright. Well, I hope you guys are ready because now we're going to take a step back in time. Saddle up, take a ride to the past as we take a tour of the Stockyards. Catch.
Stop right here. And this is Sam. He's going to film part of the tour today.
This is just for a project, y'all.
Yeah, he's got a little project he's working on. So. Anyway, well, in here, every place you see a shop or a restaurant, these were pens where the pigs and sheep were kept. And there's some pictures on the wall here that show you what it looked like when we had pigs and sheep in here. We're actually standing in a pen right here. You can see where these posts are, where the hinges are. There would have been gates along here. Each pen had its own feed bin, these old red feed bins. They still had to feed the animals while they were here, which usually wasn't very long, just 24 to 48 hours, but they still had to feed and water them. But of course, long before we had pigs and sheep here, all of this started with the longhorn cattle. And the longhorn, the breed itself, originates in Africa. And then the Moors took the cattle up to Spain. And when the Spanish explorers came to discover the New World, they're the ones who brought the pigs and sheep with them, the cattle with them. We know on Christopher Columbus's second voyage to the New World in 1493, and he brought a herd of longhorns with him. So that's how they got here. They're not indigenous at all to the Americas. And then over the next 400 years, they multiplied into huge numbers. Of course, they had no natural enemies. They could go a long way without drinking water. They adapted to our vegetation. So by the time our Civil War started in 1861, we estimated there were about 5 million longhorn cattle in Texas and down in Mexico. And as you saw from the video, the cattle made it to market, which wasn't very often. They didn't bring much money at all. It was $2, $3, $4 a head. Of course, back then people had, our population here in Texas, of course, was very small at that time. And people had plenty of food, plenty of wild fish and fowl and game. So they weren't concerned about all these millions of stray longhorns and unbranded cattle. We call them mavericks. You could go out and round up and keep as many mavericks as you wanted, but few people bothered to do that until after the Civil War was over. And then, of course, the entire country was in poverty. People were hungry from the East Coast to the West Coast. They needed food, and they needed the cattle to replenish and rebuild their herds that had been lost during the war. So it was some men working for the railroad up in Abilene, Kansas, who came up with this brilliant idea of starting what we now call this era of the Great Cattle Drive. Now, these men were working for the Kansas Pacific Railroad, which today we know is the Union Pacific Railroad. And they were hoping to finish building the Transcontinental Railroad all the way out to California, something that President Lincoln proposed and pushed for. Unfortunately, he didn't live long enough to see it happen. But that's what they were working on. And they were hoping to establish a railhead, a hub, in Abilene. Abilene's about 400 miles north of Fort. And they looked down here in Texas and saw all of this beef wandering around that no one was really interested in. And they thought, what a great way to promote our railroad, and what a great way to kind of jumpstart the economy again after the war was over. So they came down around San Antonio and the border with Mexico and started rounding up all of these mavericks, all of these stray longhorns. They drove them right up the streets of San Antonio, right up through Austin, our state capital, and then right through our downtown streets of Fort Worth, right through this area where we're standing, and up north to Abilene. Abilene was a central hub for about 10 or 11 years. You know, a lot of these men working for the railroad became millionaires almost overnight. People back east would pay. They were so excited to have it cattle again. And you look at a longhorn, you think, yeah, there's not much meat on there, but it's all they had back then. So people would pay $20, $30, $40, $50 a head back east, and out in California up to $100 a head. So a lot of these men really became millionaires, and I think really helped to Texas to grow, which was the plan after the war, and really helped put Fort Worth on the map. So I give due credit to, first of all, to the Moors for taking the cattle up to Spain, and then for the Spanish explorers who brought the cattle with them, and then for these railroad men who saw a good opportunity. They seized this huge opportunity. Here's free beef, so why not? And like I say, I think they helped put us on the map. Fort Worth was founded in 1849. We were one of a line of 7 forts that stretched out to California. Soldiers here to protect the early settlers. The fort was decommissioned after 4 or 5 years. There were a couple of hundred people who remained behind. It was just a very small community, not much here at all, until these big cattle drives started. As I say, they came right through our downtown streets here, right through this area, trailing the cattle up north to Abilene. There was nothing at that time between Fort Worth and Abilene. It was all open territory. So if these cattle outfits needed anything, they would stop here and get what they needed before heading up the trail, whether that was supplies or fresh horses or more drovers. An average size herd back then in Fort Worth was about 1,500 head, and it would have taken anywhere from 8 to 10 to 12 drovers to handle a herd like that. And it would have taken them anywhere from 2 to 4 months to make the whole trip up to Abilene. So, as I say, if they needed anything, they would stop right here in Fort Worth before heading up the trail. Now, this period in our history only lasted about 20 years, this era of the Great Cattle Drive. But in that amount of time, we estimate about 10 million head of cattle went up the trails. And about half of that came right here through where we're standing, through here up to Abilene. There were many reasons for the end of this era of the Great Cattle Drive. The main reason was the invention of barbed wire, which closed off the cattle range. You know, our history almost parallels Australia's history. Yours is just almost the same. As the big cattle ranches or stations were established. Barbed wire, fencing closed everything off. Same here as in Australia. And of course, we still have huge cattle ranches here in Texas. Kind of what we're known for, I guess. So again, these longhorn cattle are pretty much what helped establish us. But by the end of this era of the Great Cattle Drive, we had many other breeds of cattle, all started with the longhorn, and we had many different cattle trails, of course. But our most famous cattle trail was the Chisholm Trail. So when you're here in the Fort Worth Stockyards, you're on part of the historic Chisholm Trail. And there's a marker back in the front lawn of our former Visitors Center that tells you more about the Chisholm Trail. But yeah, all these big herds, as I say, came right through here and up north to Abilene in the early days. Fort Worth, like any other town or city, our stockyards did begin in the downtown area. But very early on, our forefathers here made the move the stockyards away from downtown 2 miles north up here. You know, of course, we had cattle drives even back when the Spaniards were here, back in the 1700s. And we had cattle drives too back before the Civil War had started. But once the war started, there was a blockade, so of course they couldn't get any kind of goods from the southern states up to the northern states. But Fort Worth kind of became this center then for the agricultural industry here in Texas once these big cattle drives started, once the war was over. But as I say, our stockyards have moved 2 miles north up here, and for that reason, the Fort Worth Stockyards is the only intact stockyards left anywhere in the United States. Now, in 1902, Swift and Armour, the two big meatpacking houses, came down here from Boston. Yay, Boston, again. And they're the ones who brought the pig and sheep industries with them. And once they came, the Fort Worth Stockyards became second only to Chicago Stockyards. Chicago. See, all our history is just all intertwined, even in Australia. So we became second only to Chicago. Chicago actually had more livestock that came through there, but our stockyards was bigger in size. We were the largest stockyards in the Southwest. And of course, we had the horses and mules that were traded here too. So we had 5 different kinds of livestock traded here. But Swift and Armour were here then for almost 70 years. Armour closed first in 1962 and Swift in 1971. And we had just a handful of buildings here originally when Swift and Armour first came here. But very quickly, once they got here, they really started to build and develop the area. You'll recall from the video, we had a big fire here in 1911. We've had many huge fires, but we had a huge fire in 1911. That was one of our really first big passing train sparked a grass fire. And it burned down the original barns and buildings on this side of the street. Teddy Roosevelt, President Theodore Roosevelt, happened to be across the street giving a speech when the fire broke out. We'll talk more about him in a few minutes. Within the following year, then, they rebuilt all these barns out of the reinforced steel and concrete, and we finished laying out our bricks. And again, tell you the story of our Thurber bricks here in just a few minutes. So these barns are a little over 100 years old. This is, again, all of the original design. And again, once Swift and Armour left here, though, all of this was abandoned. The whole Stockyards area covers about 140 acres. But this was just all left abandoned, and there was a big plan at that time. They were going to tear everything down and redevelop the whole area. But fortunately, that didn't happen. And in 1976, the entire area was declared a National Historic District. So all of this is being preserved. And then in the 1980s, a group of private investors came in and started buying out the area, bringing in the shops and the restaurants, including Billy Bob's Texas. And all of that's helping further preserve everything. Any questions then from anybody at the moment? I want to take you back to the back here then and show you what we call our pig and sheep subway.
And it's not light rail either.
It's not light rail. And their own special transportation system to get the animals across the street to Swift and Armour. And before we go, I will just point out here, if you're looking for your John Wayne toilet paper,
That's it right there.
a weird souvenir, but that's where you'll find it right there.
Tough as leather.
Rough and tough. You won't find it anywhere. You won't weigh your suitcase down either.
Oh, but it will scar you.
So we'll walk back here, go see a few pictures here that show you what it looked like when all this was abandoned. Weeds grew up, the place really started to fall apart before it was rescued.
Some of the photographs are kind of faint, as y'all can see, but some are still intact. And these are here, so anytime you decide to come down to the stockyards, you can see them. And they really do highlight the story of what this place was, and still is, in a way. That one doesn't have one. Yeah, that's what the bricks look like. You're going to hear more about that in a few minutes. It feels nice. Yeah, last week was something else.
So yes, we do have a church here. This is a traditional cowboy church. It's non-denominational. They meet at high noon on Sundays, so anyone is welcome to come and worship with them. So then right across from the church then is what we call our pig and sheep subway. As we said, not like rail. Just a little underground tunnel now. We're back here at the back loading docks of the Stockyards. Trains come to both Fort Worth and Dallas in 1876. And then very quickly the industry switched over to rail car. And we had our own railroad here. We had about 6 railroad tracks back here. And we'll see better in a few minutes where Swift and Armour were. They were across the street from us. Armour was on my left, Swift was on my right. And they were both huge, huge plants. There were dozens and dozens of big tall buildings, big smokestacks. And when they rebuilt these barns after that 1911 fire, they built a bridge on either end here, connected across the street to either plant. And they came up with this tunnel system. So as the animals, the livestock would be brought in, again, at any given time, all of these pens here would have been full of pigs and sheep. We had 2,600 pens across the street for the cattle, and they were full all the time too. But, and Swift and Armour, they were actually a 1/3 owner of the stockyards, so they weren't really competing with each other. But they were, and we had other meat packing houses around here. They were the 2 biggest. Together they employed about 5,000 people, and they worked here non-stop, 24/7, 365 days a year. So there was always activity across the street, always activity in here. But they would unload the livestock then by rail car, later by truck, once the trucking industry took over. Bring the, again, pigs and sheep in here, cattle across the street. And this was more of a terminal market once Swift and Armour got here. You could still come here and buy live livestock, but most of the livestock would end up across the street at Swift and Armour. So the animals then would be auctioned off and then led through this tunnel system and up over the bridge to either plant. To give you an idea of just how busy it was here, why we were second only to Chicago stockyards, on an average day, about 10,000 head of livestock would come through these tunnels and up over the bridges to either plant. They could process a pig or a sheep in about 20 minutes and a head of cattle in about 30 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
So in the almost 70 years that Swift and Armour were here, we estimate that about 50 million head of cattle, 50 million sheep, and 33 million hogs came through here.
That's a lot of meat.
Yeah, it is. A lot of everything. Hides, yeah, all of that stuff. Wool. A lot of people don't associate Texas with pigs or sheep, but we're still one of the top producers of both. But yeah, people will ask, sheep? Well, nobody eats sheep anymore. But we do.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And lamb.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was, as I say, an extremely busy place round the clock. You have to use your imagination on how noisy it would have been in here, and certainly how stinky it would have been. I grew up here in Fort Worth when all this was still in operation, and believe me, you could smell this all over town. But that smell was part of our economy. It meant money, and it didn't really bother us. But
Stinking
it was
rich.
a huge dent in our economy when Swift and Armour closed. And again, there are various reasons for their closure. The main reason, well, there were just lots of reasons, but really the main one, they had been here almost 70 years. The industry, of course, the agricultural industry was just evolving all the time, so their plants were just very old, very outdated. It would have been too costly for them to modernize everything. So that's kind of the main reason. But also, as I say, we had switched mainly from rail car to trucks. Almost 100 years after President Lincoln had pushed for the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad in the 1950s, President Eisenhower was pushing for the completion of our interstate highway system. So once that happened, we started building feedlots and processing plants all across the country. We didn't need a big, huge, centralized operation like this anymore. So our stockyards closed about the same time as Chicago's did. But as I said, we are the only intact stockyards left anywhere around. As other towns and cities started to grow, they incorporated their stockyards areas. So there's nothing left of Chicago's, Oklahoma City, Kansas City, St. Louis, Omaha, Atlanta, Boston, New York. They're all gone. And we don't have everything here that we used to have, but it is enough to show you how all of this worked, and what it looked like and how it worked. And they worked here very quickly, obviously, and efficiently to have millions and millions of livestock through here for all those years. Any questions from anyone?
Is any of this the original, or was it always built when it was refurbished?
Well, the wood, most of the wood's been replaced, but yeah, the concrete, yeah, all of this is original to 1911, 1912.
It looks original.
Mm-hmm. And it's hard to imagine, yeah, 100 years ago, this was all very modern, very state-of-the-art. It doesn't look like it today.
That's technology advancement for you.
And it really is, yeah. I mean, we had, the sprinkler system and all that. It was very modern. And the way they divided all of the whole process here, all the operations made sense, which helped them to work, as I say, round the clock, very, very quickly, very efficiently. Even the horses and mules. And Forest Stockyards was the largest horse and mule market in the world. About 1.5 million head of horses and mules came through here. They were all the lucky ones that lived here alive. But they would be unloaded back here and walked across this bridge, this crosswalk up here ahead of us, and over to the horse and mule barns where we started our tour. I think I said those barns could house up to 3,000 head at a time. From like World War I up through World War II, our biggest buyer of the horses and mules was the United States Army. Then after World War II was over, that market kind of dropped off. But until then, this was the center of the universe. This is where you come and buy horses and mules. So. But many of them, of course, were shipped overseas for World War I and World War II. I like to think some of their descendants are still running around there today.
It wouldn't surprise me.
It wouldn't surprise me either at all. Anyway, we'll walk down here then. Obviously, there's a truck parked there, so we'll go down the steps instead.
And as you're wondering, the bridge is right up here. I will zoom in so you can see it.
Yeah, right now. I'm going to tell you
Right there.
about our bricks. You're just noticing the ramps there made out of bricks.
Oh, yeah.
We'll walk down here. Yes, we'll turn right there. First.
Yep.
I would have gone that way.
I know, right?
We'll stop right here. I'll tell you about our bricks right here. Now they're setting up for a wedding.
There's always something going on here.
Always.
Weddings, quinceañeras, you name it.
Everyone. Everybody does something different. Anyway, if you've been around, walking around much at all in the stockyards, you have noticed the entire area is bricked. And most of these, as I said, are our Thurber bricks. Thurber, again, about 70 miles west of us on the interstate. Thurber was founded as a coal mining town. They mined coal for the railroad. And then in 1897, they opened a brick factory. And people came from all over the world to live and work there, either in the coal mine or for the brick factory. During Thurber's heyday, about 10,000 people lived and worked there. For decades, Thurber was the largest city between Fort Worth and El Paso. Well, in 1902, when Swift and Armour came here to the stockyards, the labor unions came into Thurber. So all of the coal miners were unionized, and then all of the brick makers were made members of their union. So when we get back out here, I'm going to show you some good bricks. You'll see the name Thurber on them. And a lot of them, you'll see this little triangle symbol on them, and like the one I passed around to you back in the
Sounds like someone's having fun up there.
Thank you for our Thurber bricks.
They heard you.
Yay, Thurber. Anyway, that little triangle symbol then is the brickmakers union symbol. See? But of course, by 1902, it was starting. There were a lot of things going on at that time. All of our early streets and sidewalks were paved with these kind of Thurber bricks. If you go to downtown Fort Worth, all of our old streets are paved with Thurber bricks. Downtown Dallas are paved with Thurber bricks. Congress Avenue leading up to our state capitol in Austin is paved with Thurber bricks. They're used all around the state of Texas. But I think we ended up with most of them here in the Stockyards. Now, by 1911, then, when we had the big fire here and they started rebuilding these barns, it was starting to become cheaper and easier to use concrete and asphalt for pavement. So we were getting away from using these big heavy bricks.
Unfortunately.
And then also by then, oil had been discovered in a number of places here in Texas, but including a little town called Ranger, which is right near Thurber. And that, of course, revolutionized our lives, still is today. But people then started to leave their jobs in Thurber. They went out and got better jobs in the oil field, and they had changed from coal to oil for the trains, too. So the town of Thurber kind of just dwindled down to nothing. But they still had this huge surplus of bricks. So as they were rebuilding these barns in, the men went over to Thurber and brought back an estimated 10 million bricks. That's why you see so many of them.
Oh, yeah.
But you can see all of these ramps then were paved with the bricks, and each ramp is kind of different looking too. But they spaced the bricks so that the pigs and sheep wouldn't slip and slide around. They could keep the production lines moving very quickly. And then they came and paved all of these alleyways, which made it that much easier for the workers. They weren't kicking up dirt or dust or anything. And then they paved all the pens, which made it that much easier to clean up, since there was a turnover of livestock about every 24 hours. So it made sense how they used the bricks. And of course, we do have these rooms available back here to rent for weddings and receptions, parties, meetings. And it's easy to clean up after humans have been back here. Some people who can act like pigs, but not our pigs. But I'll take you back out in the middle. I'll show you some really good Thurber bricks back in the middle aisle. As I said, during Thurber's heyday, about 10,000 people lived and worked there. Today, Thurber is officially a ghost town. There are only 5 people who live and work there. It's the Bennett family. They own and operate the Smokestack restaurant. There's a handful of buildings left. It's one of those towns, if you drive through and blink your eyes, you'll miss it. They are officially the only 5 residents of Thurber today. That restaurant's great. That's a good day trip to take. Yeah, from Dallas. Yeah. Food is fantastic. They get there plenty early, because when they run out of food at lunch, that can be it.
There you go.
Anyway, any questions then from anyone? We'll walk on back out in the middle then. I'll show you some Thurber bricks. Then we'll go ahead and head across the street.
And folks, these bricks have withstood the test of time. Compared to concrete and asphalt, you have to tear it up and lay it down. They were stones, but you lay down bricks like what you're seeing in the video. You only have to do it one time. These have been here for over 100 years and they're still strong. That's why we need to go back to using more bricks and less concrete and asphalt. Another thing that was not mentioned is when Roosevelt was giving his speech and the fire broke out, he actually stopped and went to help put it out. He was part of the bucket brigade. I don't think, though, today's modern president would do such a thing, but things were different back then.
I know, everything. Yeah, I've paved all those streets and sidewalks, so there's brick. Union symbol on them. Yeah, who would have ever thought 100 years later.
They'd still be here.
So we do have our tourist train coming in from Grapevine at 2:30. I guess the ticket office is open, so I guess they are going out.
I don't know. I haven't heard any information on it.
Well, I don't know why else he'd be here.
They might be doing it. I'm hoping they are.
So that's what these tracks are for. They're not original, but they're for our tourist train. If you want to hear me over the band, we'll go ahead and go out the front and go across the street.
If y'all missed what you said, those tracks I just showed were part of the Grapevine Vintage Railroad. I've already done
or there will be a future video on that train. Before we cross the street, I'll do a quick stop, and you're going to see the water tower used for the steam engine and the turntable they used to turn the train around. And every Saturday there is a band playing in the Stockyards station, but only on the weekends.
But I did get shot once.
Uh-oh!
Well, it's still early. Check back after 4 o'clock.
So, again, immediately after the 4 o'clock cattle drive, they'll go back to the back and there'll be a gunfight reenactment. It's one of our gunfighters today. So it's free, it's a lot of fun.
It'll make you laugh.
We'll be right back.
It's mighty loud.
It is
Think this fight, bad guys are going to
Yes, the gunfight this morning was able.
Also, the cattle drive is every day at 11:30 and 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
As you can see, there's the water tower.
No, hold on.
Well, it's doable for the moment.
So yeah, the train will come in, they'll unhook the engine and take it over here to that old turntable and turn it there. There aren't many of these turntables left anywhere around the country, so it's kind of fun to watch them turn the engine. We'll go on then and head over to this building, the Livestock Exchange building, so if you'll follow me on around.
Trying to get a good shot of the turntable. They are, and they're rare to see nowadays in the United States. There we go.
Live oak. They don't get real tall, like some of our oaks.
They are beautiful, though, nonetheless.
No, they're gorgeous.
And they are gorgeous. They're great shade trees.
So even down here on the left, then those are live oaks as well, on both sides.
Oh, yeah. We need pecan trees, though. That's the Texas state tree.
Yeah, we used to have pecans around here.
Folks, you guys want to go for it? Go to the get the center right on top of it.
Who you got out here today? Maverick?
Maverick. Maverick today.
Hey, Maverick. Hey, sweetheart. How you doing today, buddy? Maverick.
Any pictures you guys want?
Maverick.
I'm Maverick.
Hey, sweetie pie.
Take your picture.
Hey there, good looking.
So,
What's
yeah,
cooking?
haven't done this yet. This is Maverick.
Just sit down. You visit next visit.
Yeah.
What's my grade? We'll sit in double all.
Anyway, Outlaw is the one down at the other end of the fence. So yeah, if you haven't done this yet, these are not part of
Easy way.
Hey, Maverick.
Going down.
Well, you look good, sweetheart.
Get off out of the
privately owned, as I said, but for $5 you can get your picture taken on there, and that's a really cool souvenir. Probably the best of all.
They're just like giant puppy dogs.
Yeah, and it truly won't weigh your suitcase down at all. We'll go on and take the tour again.
We're heading into my favorite building in the Stockyards.
Hogs over here, you see.
Modern hogs or modern horses? Both. Sounds like they're playing Better Life by Keith Urban. Is there an auction going on today?
Yeah, they started with it. Well, this is a livestock exchange building. It was built in 1902, the same time Swift and Armour came here to the Stockyards. This was and still is the heart of the Stockyards. This is where you come and pay your bill after you selected your prize bull or horses you wanted to buy. So much money exchanged hands in here then during the heyday of the Stockyards that this was called the Wall Street of the West. Now, we do still have a couple of live auctions throughout the year, but for the most part, all of our auctions stopped here in the mid-1980s. And since then, this company started Superior Livestock Auction. Of course, you can still go to a live auction, but what Superior will do is they'll come to you. They'll take a video of your herd or livestock you want to sell. They'll bring the film back here, and then it's broadcast live from this room. We do have an auction that will be starting at 3 o'clock this afternoon out in Minnesota. So the auction will be live in Minnesota, but it's broadcast live here. So you can come in, it's open to the public, you can come in and watch it. When they founded their company, they also founded their own satellite television network called RFD TV. RFD TV was moved into our former visitor center then across the street. But, of course, now we have the internet, so you can pick up one of their auctions on your phone or personal computer. Still buy yourself a prize bull from Minnesota. But you're welcome to come back and watch the auction or just strolling around through the stockyard, just pick it up on your phone a little bit.
They are fun to watch.
Superior is now the largest online livestock auction houses in the United States.
There goes the
It's a
Marshall.
modern, high-tech way of having auctions today. The kiosk explains more about their process. And then back here, you notice all the big bronze medallions that are all throughout our sidewalks. In the Stockyards, this is our Texas Trail of Fame. These are the people who have made significant contributions to the history of the American West and the Western way of life. So there are all these boards. We induct 12 new people every year. There's a bunch more boards back here. A lot of them you'll recognize, even from Australia you'll recognize. John Wayne, Mark Twain, Lone Ranger and Tonto, Lady Bird Johnson, Bar Rogers and Dale Evans. And you can find out more about the people in the Trail of Fame and more about our stockyards and our longhorns in our museum here. If you'll follow me on up here.
I'm going to use my flashlight for this segment for my phone so it shows up. No, it's actually better.
Yeah, our museum is operated by our local historical society, and they've got some wonderful exhibits. Nothing else go in there and see a light bulb that's been burning continuously for 109 years. But they've got some really good exhibits and great history. They put up this good picture for us. Now you can see how big Armour and Swift were. So I say they were both huge plants. Here's where we were down here where the tunnel is. And now you can see the railroad tracks and those bridges. There's an even better picture on the way out the back door here. So if you'll follow me on down here.
I like this picture.
Yeah, they put up another one down there.
This one actually shows up better on camera.
This shows better because the light is better.
Oh yeah,
I
perfect.
Stop at this one. So again, here we are in the livestock exchange building, and now you can see all across the street were the barns. And again, you can see how big Armour and Swift were, those bridges, the railroad tracks. And this was taken in 1948, and even then, most of the pens back here were full. So we're going to walk out here. We'll go through an old turnstile that's over 100 years old, and up on what we call a cattleman's catwalk, the big bridge that overlooks the pens. We'll see what's left of the pens. We'll see what's left of Swift and Armour. And we're also going to see, as I said, some of our herd out here. So let's go on out. There's our running FW brand.
The museum and the pictures are from the North Fort Worth Historical Society, which I just recently joined. If anybody's watching history, they meet on the second Thursday of each month right here in the Livestock Exchange Building. Check them out online for more information. Oh, no one's out here today.
Yeah, a whole commercial there.
I'm just trying to get people to come down here.
They're over here in these pens. They may have moved them. You'll find these boards then all around in the stockyards. There's a picture of our herd. We have, as I said, 23 head. Not everybody's picture's on these boards. But you can see our running FW brand on there. That brand, as I said, it's on all of our herds, all of our steers, all of our herd. They're all steers. And they all have names, as you see. All of our drovers carry these little playing cards like football or baseball training cards. So there's a card for each one of our steers, and it's fun to go around and collect them from all of the drovers. But you can also buy the whole set back in the museum gift shop. But I think it's more fun to go around and get them. Today, in fact, is Rojo's birthday.
Aww.
What's the average lifespan?
They live to be in their 20s, like a horse. And on average, a steer weighs about 1,800 pounds.
Whoa.
And on average, their horns are about 6 feet wide. I didn't see how old Rojo is today. But
He's still young, though.
he's still fairly young. I don't know, he's like, 10, 11, something like that. Anyway, we'll walk around through this turnstile again and up on the catwalk. Now they did have those steers in here. I don't know where they
Those are two of the newest steers, Chisholm and Goodnight. And you're about to see a side. It's hard to make out, but just put out your cigarettes. Yeah. This thing's old, but it still works.
After 100 years, it's still.
Hey, it turned smoothly this time. No grunting noises.
All of our herd is back in those pens over there, and at 4 o'clock then they'll take them up that ramp and back down the street right in front of us.
It's quite a sight.
There is an observation deck over there too if you want to go over and look at them, take their picture, talk to them. I promise they all know their names.
And they will talk right back to
They
you.
do sometimes. They'll come right up to the fence and talk to you. They're funny. But now you can see then in front of us what's left of Armor, the red brick building, and then across from it was Swift. We had another huge fire here about 3 years after Swift closed, and it burned down most of the buildings back there. The fire did spare their big office building, that one with the white columns on it. That's been restored. It's owned today by ExxonMobil Corporation. They have offices in there. And they also own what's left of Armor. We're supposed to be pretty soon breaking ground on a new 120-room hotel that will be back up here. It's going to be called the Armor Hotel. And it's going to be beautiful in the same Spanish architectural style as the rest of the building. So
Thankfully.
it's going to be really, really nice and kind of rejuvenate this whole end of the Stockyards over here. Again, we have the 2,600 pins. I showed you the pictures downstairs. They stretched all the way to the bridge over there, which is 28th Street. They came all the way back around to Billy Bob's. That's Billy Bob's Texas with the red roof on it, the world's largest honky-tonk. But you can see now with most of the pins gone, you can see the splotches of red out there, and you see all the red below us. This whole area is brick. These are our Thurber bricks. So if you're wondering where the 10 million bricks went, they're all out here. And
Yeah.
we did had a big project last year. They took out a bunch of ramps that were over here, and they have cleaned those, kind of sorted through them. We'll repurpose as many as possible, and the rest we sell as souvenirs. So
Man, we'll weigh your suitcase down.
yeah, I passed a brick around to them, so they know how heavy they are. But they are a cool souvenir. Any other questions from up here? We'll head down and go next door then to the Coliseum. So we'll go back through that old turnstile.
It's pretty neat up here. This is one of my favorite places to be in the Stockyards. You can see just about everything from this area. It's really unique. Unfortunately, we would not see the Longhorns eating today, and I've seen that numerous times, but if you're out here at just the right time, they're down here eating hay and all kinds of stuff. It's pretty funny to watch. Sometimes they fight over the food, but it's really quite a show. And the building you just saw is an auction arena. And just like the old days, yes, trains still come through the Stockyards. Not just grapevine. They're coming.
Some of the stores carry the steak plan.
During the summer, they actually have a cowboy camp out here on Saturdays. Go online for information about that as well. Like I said, there's so much to see and do here in the Stockyards. So that's what the area is for stuff like that.
horns would be ground up with fertilizer.
Also, if you're wondering what they do with the manure from all the animals, they'd be grounded up and they use that for fertilizer. They put it on the field by 28th Street Bridge, and you could come and get it. It was free fertilizer, but it was part of the economy as well.
And that could be a local restaurant, or whatever they need. A lot of them buy, like even today, cattle. A lot of places will still buy a whole beast. A lot of them though do half, and then when they get them to the store, then they cut them up. Yeah. So, just no breeze right now.
It's not too bad though.
Here, then we'll go on inside. We have an annual stock show and rodeo here in Fort Worth. It started in the Stockyards in 1896, the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo. It was just a one-day event where they brought the best of their animals to show off. They would tie them up around the trees and along the fence line. Well, by 1907, the show had become very popular, and the organizers then wanted to have a year-round indoor building that they could use. But it was a very short time before the 1908 show was to begin, so believe it or not, they built this building, what we call the Coliseum, in only 88 days.
Oh yeah.
And they had it ready in time for the 1908 show. So when we come around the front, you'll see the dates here, 1908. And we'll go on inside. You'll be able to hear me better when we get inside. So follow me on around here.
Well, this song sounds kind of catchy. How you dancing, Betty?
See our dates here, 1908.
We'll learn more about the cannons later. Howdy. How you doing? It does. I like it. I'm gonna get down and dance to that song now.
Okay, y'all come on right in here. I'll close the door.
Oh, yes. I got that tractor in there today.
Yeah, down there at the top. A lot
Thank goodness.
Yeah, he's got the tractor going, so we'll stand here to have to compete with that. But anyway, so all of this dates then to 1908. This was our main venue, the main auditorium for whenever anybody came to town to speak or perform. This is where they would come. This is where Teddy Roosevelt was giving his speech in 1911 when the fire broke out across the street. Of course, they evacuated the whole area, but he didn't leave. He stayed, actually went across the street and helped put out the fire. He was part of the bucket brigade, which I think is pretty cool. Besides him, we've had another U.S. president here. Jimmy Carter spoke here in 1980, so we've had two U.S. presidents. And then everything from as weird as the Russian ballet performed here. We've had professional boxing matches. We've had, of course, all your famous cowboys and cowgirls competed here until we built the Will Rogers Coliseum over in our cultural district about 5 miles from here. And now that's where all of our stock show and rodeo events occur. It's now a 3-week-long event, the last 2 weeks of January and the first week of February. But until then, this was the place to be. And we've had everyone else here from Bob Hope, Doris Day, George Strait filmed part of this movie Pure Country here. And oh yeah, Elvis was here in 1956. Elvis came and sang in 2 shows. I understand he has left the building. Nobody has seen him since.
Because he went home.
If you've seen him, though, let me know, because I'd like to see him myself. We use the Coliseum today then for our professional rodeos on Fridays and Saturdays at 8 o'clock. So the Libya Rodeo tonight at 8. And also our Pawnee Bill's Wild West show at 2:30 and 4:30. So that's what he's planning out, getting ready for the 2:30 show. But all, as I said, all this dates to 1908 has the original wooden ceiling. Before there was air conditioning and heat, we just had skylights around the top, windows all covered over now. We'll go in and we'll take a real quick look inside. It's 2,500 feet. There's some steps here. I'm going to walk around to these steps.
I don't have the chain up this time. Makes it easier. I hope he is. Really annoys me when they do that when you're trying to get your tour.
I know, I talked to Leon about it later.
Well, hello!
So he's kind of rehearsing for the show, dude. But again, all of this dates to 1908.
Sound got a good
If you're
voice.
interested in coming to the Wild West show or the rodeo tonight, the box office is out in front. The world's first indoor rodeo was held here in 1918, so it's just a really cool building. So, like to hear him ring.
Yippee!
Hello.
Check.
Got it!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Fort Worth Stockyards National Historic District. Hey, we got some good news for you today. At 2:30 and 4:30, we will be hosting the Pawnee Bill's Wild West Show. Inside you can see bullwhip gardens, trick roping, trick riding, trick shooting, Native American ceremonial dancing, cowboy singing, a whole lot more. It's a whole lot of fun, a little bit of history. Family breakfast and family oriented. So remember to make your plans. 2:30 and 4:30 will be inside of the historical Cowtown Coliseum for the Pawnee Bill's Wild West Show. We'll see you there.
Everything he said.
Yeah, what he said. Anyway, does anybody have any questions at all? Does anybody want to go up to Billy Bob's? As I said, it's an extra $2 to go up there. They charge $2 to go in. I'll take in. I'm going to tell you the history in there. They'll do some bull riding here tonight in the rodeo, and then you go up to Billy Bob's, and it's just bull riding up there. So I'll take you in and show you where the bull riding takes place. I'll show you the main stage in there. You know, it's mostly country and western. We'll end our tour at Billy Bob's Wall of Fame. Tomorrow is Willie Nelson's 85th birthday. I'll show you Willie Nelson's Wall of Fame plaque up there. So,
Me and her went to see him last year and had a good time that night.
yeah. Anyway, anybody want to go up there? You two did?
Why not?
All right. Y'all did?
Clint Black's there tonight.
Okay.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. You may not get the bull ride tonight because you got some foot lag on.
You were there last night. Good for you. All right, well, we'll walk around here to the side door and walk up there.
Well, now I conclude this part of the video for the tour. Thank y'all for coming, sitting around the campfire, and hearing a story about history. Now we're going to head outside for a few more surprises. This right here is a cannon. There are two. There's one here. There's one down there. These were used during the Battle of the Alamo. They were bought to the city of Fort Worth. I remember why, but they never asked what we're going to do with them. So they decided to put them out here outside the arena. I think they look amazing, so this is something y'all can check out. As you can see, there's a plaque down here at the top, so more about it. I'm going to pause the video anytime you can read it. Cut. Now this right here is a statue of a famous bull rider named Bill Pickett. He was crazy, but man, he was one of the best they ever had. What he did was, he took a bull by the horns and bit it on the lip. That's what bulldogs typically do, but he did it anyway. Now I got one more thing to show y'all, then we'll close this video. Alright, y'all, well, here we are close to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed everything I've shown you today. Now I've got a few more surprises to show you. Prior to the ones you just saw, I have 4 more things you're going to see. I would like to apologize if you saw my face and you saw my mouth and nose most of the tour. The reason is I had the camera kind of low. I didn't realize it was like that. Also, if you didn't see anything on camera very well some of the time, do not worry. It's all still here. You can come down and see it just about any time you want to. And one thing you did not see on the tour was Billy Bob's. I did not film that primarily because it's too dark and dim in there, but also you're not allowed to film. However, though, I will be closing with a few more surprises. This right here is a speech, or part of a speech that President Roosevelt was giving when he was here speaking in the Stockyards. And if you want, you can pause the video and read it. It's really quite something. This right here shows different segments of how certain arrangements work with cow drives and stuff like that. It's got chuck wagons you can see, a herd of horses, and a herd of cattle. And as you recall, they're often called drovers. That's how they drive a cow drive, but they're not called cow drivers, they're called drovers for short. And this was mentioned on the tour, but this is just for your reference on when the cow drive is, and also it has a few safety things written on it. As you can see, you need to stand on the curve and stand up. You can't be sitting down and hold on to your children. Cattle drives are fun to watch, but safety is a major precaution and not something you joke about. Alright, well, I have one more thing to show you guys, and we'll end this video with one final surprise.
Recording.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed your tour today of the Stockyards and all the sights you saw. There's a lot of amazing things to see and do here, and it's very unique. Now, it's not quite big and booming as it once was, but it still serves a purpose for the city of Fort Worth and the heritage for the state of Texas. We're actually back here behind some of the businesses. As you can see, we're actually right by a creek. Now, this creek connects to the Trinity River, which is in downtown Fort Worth. And if you look over there, the old Wells Fargo Bank used to be in this area. Underground, they had stables where they kept horses and carriages. Now, the horses and carriages are gone, but believe it or not, they kept the stables intact. Quite a few movies and TV shows were filmed here at the Stockyards, including Walker, Texas Ranger, Dallas, Deer Country, and some songs have also been written about it, including Stockyards by Casey Donahue, Cowtown by George Strait, and Big Balls in Cowtown, also by George Strait. A lot of famous people came to the Stockyards and learn more about them online. I'm down here just about every Saturday. You can find me dressed up like this. I'm more than happy to meet you, shake your hand, and you can get your picture taken with me if you want, and I can answer any question you have. Without wrapping up for this video, I'm going to leave you with the shot of the cow drive and the brave Funkings Road leaving the Stockyards. So until next time, happy trails, partner.
Behind the curve line, okay?
I like French.
Where you need to be up on the curve.
Hey, hip, hey, hip.
Put down the water on the
Look at there. I've not seen you do that.
Happy Thanksgiving, Matt. See you next time. Yes, sir. Say hi to Debbie for me. Thank you, dude. Take it easy.
And there y'all have it. So this was one of my earliest attempts at making a big video. This one was shot over several days in the Stockyards. And it's old, it's out of date, but still cool. And again, and I meant to say this at the beginning, Betty, if you're watching, this one's for you. So, what has changed since this program was made? Well, quite a few things. First of all, the visitor center has been moved around several times. They had their old building like you saw at the beginning, but it was moved to the Texas Cowboy Hall of Fame Museum. And a lot of things have been moved around. The Hall of Fame Museum was moved and is now located in an area that was once known as the Shops of Rodeo Plaza. They now occupy that space. The Shops of Rodeo Plaza was right next to the rodeo. It started off life as a barn, then became a hotel, then a mechanic shop, and now it's used, basically for shops. Well, it was. Now it's I can't talk straight. Now it currently houses the John Wayne Museum. A lot of the trees and grass that you saw in front of the Exchange building are now gone, replaced with gravel. They have events out there, which is good, but I hate the fact they had to tear down all those beautiful trees that were healthy. The visitor center is now in a small hut in front of the Exchange building. It wasn't amazing, now it's there, which is kind of ridiculous. They used to have a good visitor center I used to go and visit, but it's gone now, and it's been gone for years. Superior Livestock has moved out of the Stockyards too. They now have their own location. The PBR, a Professional Bull Riding Association, now occupies the space where it was. A new hotel has been built called Hotel Drover, right behind the Hyde Hotel, which is right behind the former Visitor Center. The Visitor Center is, as you heard, now the RFD TV store, or it was. I don't know what it's used for now, to be honest, guys. It's changed so much over the years. The horse and mule barns still served a purpose during the time the program was being made. The Hall of Fame Museum was there, but also at the far end, the barn was still being used to house horses and mules for horseback riding, so it still was an active barn. Again, that has changed. Those buildings on both sides of what is called Mule Alley, they are now shops and restaurants again. In front of the Coliseum, a new statue was erected for Red Steagle during one of the cowboy gatherings. The Red Steagle Cowboy Gathering is one of the major events, and I've gone to it a couple of times. It is great. I also have a good time. It is fun. Go check it out if you haven't. Various changes have happened. People have come and gone. A lot of things are still the same, but it's not the same Stockyards as you once knew. Also, 1883 was filmed in the Stockyards, just up north of the area we were in Hell's Half Acre. And the song Big Balls and Cowtown was actually written by Bob Wills, not George Strait. Another song I came across is called Fort Worth, Texas by Ray Price. It's a great song. So the Stockyards has changed a lot. Oh, the non-denominational cowboy church has moved out too, unfortunately. And the pictures you saw in the barns, they've been replaced. They're still good pictures, but not the same. So the Stockyards came and went. A man named Holt Hickman and his wife came in and bought the Stockyards and brought everything back to life, put the church in there. The church was free. And then when Holt Hickman passed away, a company called Majestic from California, you conservatives know where I'm going with this, came in, took over, and changed a lot of things. They wanted to charge the cowboy church at the time $3,000 a month for a small space. I didn't get to attend a sermon there. I wanted to, but I got in touch with the pastor. and I told him how sad I was. It's not the building that makes a church. It's the people in the congregation. They said that they're sad to leave and they're going to miss being in the Stockyards, but they are not leaving Fort Worth, which I think is a plus in my opinion. The cow drove still twice a day, but the Piney Bill's Wild West show is no more. In 2020, right before the pandemic started, it was announced the Wild West show will be gone from the Stockyards, which to me is really sad, because a lot of people, including myself, enjoy seeing it. I have filmed it, and it will be uploaded eventually, along with a better version of Spirit of the West after this. I know there's better versions of the Wild West show out there, and I get that, but that was the one I knew and loved the most, because I knew all the people in it. It was a simple show, it was a lot of fun, and I keep in touch with maybe a handful of the people who participated recently. The rodeo still goes on twice a week, Fridays and Saturdays, but it's not cheap. So check the prices before you go because they change. What else about the Stockyards changes? They hold more events now than they did. They really go all out for the holiday seasons, for Christmas, which I think is great. A lot of things happen more than they used to be, which is good for the Stockyards. I don't go there to spend money. I go there for the history and the rustic charm of it. Despite all that, you can still go see the Stockyards Museum for $2. I ain't paid to say that, I'm just throwing it out there. So despite everything and all the changes, the Fort Worth Stockyards National Historic District is still a great place to go and visit. You can still find history there, you can still meet folks there like me, have food, have a drink, walk around the streets. It still is amazing, and I recommend anybody who comes to Texas, come to the Stockyards. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. So until next time, please like, share, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you on down the trail. Happy trails, folks.